How often do we find ourselves overwhelmed by emotions, reacting impulsively to situations beyond our control? Whether it's anger, frustration, or even sadness, emotions can cloud our judgment and lead to actions we later regret. But what if there was a way to master these emotions, to remain calm and composed even in the most challenging circumstances? This is where Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that emphasizes inner peace and emotional discipline, comes into play. It encourages us to focus on what we can control: our thoughts, reactions, and mindset, while letting go of what we cannot. Stoicism teaches that while emotions are natural, we don't have to be controlled by them. According to Stoic philosophy, true strength lies not in avoiding emotions altogether, but in learning how to manage them wisely. This perspective shifts the way we view emotional challenges. Instead of being swept away by anger or fear, Stoicism encourages us to take a step back, assess the situation rationally, and respond in a way that aligns with our values. Can we truly control how we feel, or is emotional mastery a lifelong practice that requires constant attention and self-awareness? The Stoic thinkers such as Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus believed that emotional resilience is key to a well-lived life. They argued that our peace of mind depends not on external circumstances, but on how we choose to interpret and react to them. In a world full of emotional triggers, how often do we pause to reflect on whether our responses serve us or harm us? Through the lens of Stoic psychology, we begin to understand that controlling our emotions is less about suppression and more about understanding our own nature. Could this approach offer a path to a more balanced and fulfilling life? Before we start, please subscribe to the channel, and if you like this video, like it and write your opinion through comments. After this introduction, we go to the main topic and examine 10 Stoic lessons in this matter. Master your emotions with these 10 Stoic teachings. Number 1. Focus on what you can control. One of the central teachings of Stoic philosophy is to focus on what you can control and let go of what you cannot. In life, many things are beyond our influence: other people's opinions, external events, or even random misfortunes. What we can control, however, is how we respond to these situations. Stoics believe that true freedom comes from mastering your reactions to the world rather than trying to control the world itself. Have you ever wasted time worrying about something you had no power over? Shifting your focus to what you can control allows you to conserve your emotional energy and make wiser choices. From a psychological perspective, focusing on controllable factors helps reduce stress and anxiety. When you stop obsessing over what you cannot change, you begin to feel more empowered and at peace with your circumstances. This approach also nurtures emotional resilience, allowing you to face challenges with clarity and strength. Imagine dealing with a frustrating situation, like losing a job. While you can't control the job loss, you can control how you react, whether it's seeking new opportunities or focusing on personal growth. This Stoic mindset encourages a proactive rather than reactive approach to life. In relationships, focusing on what you can control is crucial. If someone behaves negatively or doesn't meet your expectations, you cannot change their behavior, but you can control how you respond. This teaches emotional independence, a key to healthy connections. Imagine a disagreement with a loved one. Instead of trying to change their viewpoint, you focus on your own actions and how you handle the conflict. This calm, collected approach helps maintain harmony and self-respect. Ultimately, focusing on what you can control brings a sense of inner peace. By accepting that external factors are often out of your hands, you allow yourself to live with more purpose and less frustration. Stoic philosophy encourages us to find power in our own reactions, enabling us to lead calmer, more intentional lives. Number 2. Accept reality as it is. Accepting reality as it is forms another foundational aspect of Stoicism. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes it can be harsh. Rather than resist the inevitable, Stoics taught that we should accept the present moment as it unfolds. This doesn't mean resignation, but rather an acknowledgement of reality, allowing us to respond wisely. Have you ever felt overwhelmed because you were resisting a situation rather than accepting it for what it is? When you accept reality, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering and open the door to practical solutions. Psychologically, accepting reality can be incredibly liberating. Resisting or denying what is happening only leads to frustration and emotional turmoil. By accepting the present moment, you reduce internal conflict and make space for mental clarity. Imagine a situation where a relationship ends unexpectedly. Instead of dwelling on what could have been, accepting the situation helps you heal faster and focus on your own growth. This acceptance is not passive but active. It's about responding to reality with wisdom and grace rather than anger or denial. In everyday life, accepting reality is key to maintaining emotional balance. For example, you might not be able to control the fact that you didn't get a promotion at work, but by accepting that reality, you can focus on how to improve or explore new opportunities. The Stoic approach is to face life as it comes and adapt accordingly, rather than wasting energy on things that cannot be changed. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up or not striving for better. It simply means acknowledging the truth of a situation. By practicing this Stoic principle, you create emotional space to focus on what really matters: your own actions, choices, and mindset. Accepting reality allows you to respond with strength and wisdom, making life's challenges less overwhelming. Number 3. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is a practice that aligns deeply with Stoic philosophy. Stoicism teaches us to be fully present in each moment, rather than letting our minds wander to the past or future. Mindfulness, similarly, involves paying attention to the here and now, observing thoughts and feelings without judgment. Have you ever noticed how much time we spend either regretting the past or worrying about the future? Practicing mindfulness helps bring us back to the present, where we can find calm and clarity. Psychologically, mindfulness helps reduce anxiety and stress by shifting focus away from rumination and towards the present moment. It allows us to detach from our thoughts and emotions, observing them without becoming overwhelmed. For example, when faced with a stressful situation at work, practicing mindfulness enables you to step back, take a breath, and approach the problem with a clearer mind. This aligns with the Stoic idea of apatheia, or freedom from emotional disturbances, where you can acknowledge feelings without letting them control your actions. In Stoic philosophy, mindfulness is about becoming aware of your own thoughts and judgments, asking yourself if they serve you. Are these thoughts within your control? Are they helping you act in line with your values? For instance, if you feel frustrated by someone's behavior, mindfulness helps you pause and consider your response rather than reacting impulsively. This practice not only enhances self-control but also fosters a deeper understanding of yourself and others. By practicing mindfulness, you strengthen your ability to stay calm and centered, even in chaotic situations. Stoic philosophy encourages us to be present and engaged in the moment, recognizing that the only time we truly have control over is now. Practicing mindfulness allows us to experience life more fully, with less distraction and more intentionality. Number 4. Detach from outcomes. One of the core principles of Stoic philosophy is learning to detach from outcomes. In life, we often become overly attached to specific results, whether in relationships, work, or personal goals. Stoicism teaches us that while we should strive to do our best in every situation, we must also accept that the final outcome is not entirely within our control. This detachment from outcomes allows us to focus on what we can control: our thoughts, actions, and efforts, without being emotionally tied to results we cannot guarantee. Imagine a student studying hard for an exam. While their effort is fully within their control, the final grade depends on many external factors. Are you someone who places too much of your happiness on achieving specific outcomes? Psychologically, Attaching too much importance to a particular outcome can lead to anxiety, frustration, and disappointment if things don't go as planned. Detaching from outcomes frees you from this emotional burden. For example, if you apply for a job, you can focus on preparing for the interview and presenting your best self. Whether or not you get the job, you can find peace knowing that you gave it your all. This mindset encourages inner stability because you are no longer relying on external events for validation. How often do you tie your happiness or self-worth to achieving a certain goal? And what would change if you didn't? Stoicism encourages us to view outcomes as external factors that are beyond our control. By accepting that, we can approach life with a sense of calm and resilience. In sports, athletes often talk about focusing on the process rather than the result. A runner may train for months and perform well in a race, but external factors like weather or competition may affect the final result. By detaching from the outcome, the athlete focuses on the discipline of training and personal growth, rather than the winning alone. This helps build emotional strength and avoids unnecessary suffering from things that aren't fully in our hands. In conclusion, detaching from outcomes helps us maintain our emotional well-being, regardless of external circumstances. Ask yourself, how different would your emotional state be if you focused on the process rather than the result? By embracing this Stoic lesson, you gain more control over your emotions and inner peace, allowing you to live with greater freedom and less fear of failure. Number 5. View emotions as data. Stoicism encourages us to view our emotions not as uncontrollable forces, but as data signals that offer us valuable insights. Emotions, in this sense, are neither good nor bad. They are simply indicators of how we're reacting to our environment or thoughts. By treating emotions as data, we create space to examine them objectively and understand their root causes. For instance, if you feel anger rising during a disagreement, you can ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What is this emotion telling me about my values or expectations? Are you able to step back and analyze your emotions, or do they control you? From a psychological perspective, emotions can be understood as responses to unmet needs or desires. When we view them as data, we can better regulate our emotional responses by identifying the underlying triggers. For example, feeling anxious about a presentation might indicate a fear of judgment or failure. By understanding this fear, you can take steps to manage it, such as preparing thoroughly or adjusting your mindset, rather than allowing the anxiety to spiral out of control. This approach helps you gain clarity and avoid impulsive reactions that could escalate the situation. Can you recall a time when reflecting on your emotions helped you handle a situation more effectively? The Stoic practice of treating emotions as data encourages mindfulness and self-awareness. Instead of being swept away by an emotional wave, you pause and analyze what that emotion is trying to communicate. For example, if you feel sadness after a setback, it could be a signal that you value success in that area deeply. By identifying the source of the sadness, you can develop strategies for improvement instead of dwelling on the negative feeling. This approach empowers you to take control of your emotions rather than being controlled by them. In the end, viewing emotions as data allows you to respond with greater wisdom and clarity. Ask yourself, do you let your emotions overwhelm you, or do you use them as information to guide your actions? By adopting this Stoic approach, you can better navigate your emotional world and make choices that align with reason and personal growth. Number 6. Respond, don't react. One of the key Stoic lessons for controlling emotions is learning to respond rather than react. A reaction is often an immediate, impulsive emotional outburst, while a response is a thoughtful, measured approach that takes time to consider the situation. Stoicism teaches that between the stimulus, what happens, and our response, there is a space where we have the power to choose how we act. For example, if someone criticizes you unfairly, reacting might mean snapping back in anger. Responding, however, would involve pausing, evaluating the situation calmly, and deciding whether to address the criticism or simply let it go. Do you often find yourself reacting impulsively, or can you create that space for a more thoughtful response? Psychologically, responding rather than reacting helps prevent unnecessary emotional escalation. Reactions often come from a place of heightened emotion, where our reasoning is clouded. By pausing and reflecting, we engage our higher cognitive functions, which allow us to act in a way that aligns with our values and long-term goals. Imagine being stuck in traffic and feeling the frustration build. A reaction might be to honk angrily or shout in frustration, while a response could be to breathe deeply, accept the situation, and focus on what's within your control, like listening to music or using the time to reflect. Which of these approaches do you think would lead to a calmer, more peaceful state of mind? The Stoics emphasize the importance of self-control, especially in emotionally charged moments. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, often reminded himself to maintain calm and act with reason in all situations. Responding rather than reacting is a form of mastery over oneself. It allows us to navigate difficult situations with grace and integrity. For example, in a heated argument, instead of reacting with hurtful words, taking a moment to cool down and then responding thoughtfully can lead to a more constructive outcome. This approach not only benefits you but can also improve the quality of your relationships. In conclusion, the ability to respond rather than react is a key to emotional control and personal growth. Ask yourself in challenging situations, do you react impulsively or do you give yourself the space to respond wisely? By embracing this Stoic principle, you gain emotional mastery, making you less vulnerable to external provocations and better equipped to handle life's challenges with poise. Number 7. Practice negative visualization. One powerful Stoic technique for controlling emotions is negative visualization or imagining worst-case scenarios. This practice, while it might seem counterintuitive, is actually meant to help us appreciate what we have and prepare emotionally for the inevitable difficulties of life. By envisioning the loss of things we value, our health, loved ones, or even everyday comforts, we develop a sense of gratitude for them and become mentally resilient if they ever disappear. For instance, by imagining what life would be like without your job or a close relationship, you can better handle stress related to those areas, knowing you've prepared for such losses. How often do you take your current circumstances for granted without imagining how you might feel if they were gone? Psychologically, negative visualization shifts our focus from fear of the unknown to acceptance of potential outcomes. When we mentally prepare for setbacks or hardships, we become less likely to overreact emotionally if those situations occur. For example, if a Stoic anticipates a financial setback, they are less likely to be overwhelmed by anxiety when challenges arise. Instead of feeling shocked, they've already mentally rehearsed the scenario, which helps them maintain calm and focus on solutions. Have you ever tried mentally preparing for an outcome, only to find that the actual event wasn't as bad as you feared? Stoicism doesn't advocate dwelling on negative thoughts, but rather seeing life's impermanence and uncertainty as a reality we must accept. Through negative visualization, we don't hope for bad things to happen, but we equip ourselves with the emotional strength to deal with life's inevitable challenges. It's similar to how athletes prepare for worst-case scenarios in training. By practicing for the most difficult situations, they can stay calm and perform better under pressure. Imagine a time when you faced something unexpected. Could it have been less emotionally taxing if you had practiced visualizing that situation beforehand? In conclusion, negative visualization is a tool that helps us embrace life's uncertainties with greater emotional control. By envisioning what could go wrong, we appreciate what we have and are better prepared for life's unpredictability. Ask yourself, how would your emotional responses change if you practiced this Stoic method of mentally rehearsing potential difficulties? The practice encourages resilience, gratitude, and peace of mind, empowering you to live more fully in the present moment. Number 8. remember the impermanence of emotions. One essential Stoic lesson for controlling emotions is recognizing their impermanence. Emotions, like the weather, constantly shift and change, and understanding this helps us avoid becoming overwhelmed by them. Whether you feel extreme joy or deep sorrow, Stoicism teaches that these emotions are temporary and will eventually pass. For example, in moments of intense anger, reminding yourself that this feeling will not last forever can prevent you from reacting impulsively. Have you ever acted on an emotion, only to regret it later when the feeling subsided? Psychologically, understanding the fleeting nature of emotions helps us take a more balanced approach to how we respond to them. If we view emotions as transient waves that rise and fall, we can learn to ride them out without letting them dictate our behavior. Imagine feeling intense anxiety before a public speech. If you remind yourself that the anxiety will diminish once you start talking, you'll be more likely to focus on the task at hand rather than the discomfort of the moment. This mindset allows us to remain steady, even when our emotional state feels chaotic. The Stoic practice of viewing emotions as impermanent aligns with the philosophy's focus on rationality and self-control. By accepting that emotions are temporary, we reduce the temptation to make decisions based purely on how we feel in a given moment. For example, after an argument with a friend, instead of reacting in anger or sadness, a Stoic would take a step back and remember that these emotions will fade, allowing them to respond thoughtfully instead. This perspective helps foster healthier relationships and decision-making. Ultimately, remembering the impermanence of emotions can help you stay grounded and maintain emotional balance. Ask yourself, how differently would you handle emotions if you accepted that they're just passing experiences? By recognizing their temporary nature, you can control how you respond, leading to greater emotional resilience and inner peace. Number 9. Focus on virtue. A key teaching in Stoic philosophy is the emphasis on focusing on virtue above all else. The Stoics believe that the only thing truly within our control is our character, how we act and live according to moral virtues such as wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. By focusing on virtue, we prioritize living a life of meaning and integrity, rather than being swayed by fleeting emotions or external circumstances. For instance, if someone wrongs you, instead of reacting with anger or revenge, focusing on virtue means responding with patience and understanding. How often do you let emotions dictate your actions instead of guiding your behavior based on your principles? Psychologically, focusing on virtue can act as an anchor in emotionally turbulent times. When emotions such as fear, jealousy, or anger arise, shifting your focus to virtues like self-discipline or empathy helps you make decisions that align with your higher values. For example, in a stressful work situation, instead of panicking or blaming others, a Stoic would focus on acting with responsibility and fairness, knowing that their behavior, not the outcome, is what truly matters. This shift in focus helps reduce emotional turmoil because you're grounded in a sense of purpose and integrity. The Stoic focus on virtue also promotes long-term emotional stability. While emotions can be unpredictable and reactive, virtues provide a steady foundation for how we interact with the world. Marcus Aurelius, a famous Stoic philosopher, often reminded himself to act according to virtue, regardless of external events. Whether facing praise or criticism, success or failure, the Stoic remains calm, knowing that their worth lies not in outcomes, but in how they live their life according to moral principles. Can you think of a time when focusing on doing the right thing helped you remain calm in a difficult situation? In conclusion, by focusing on virtue, we control what truly matters: our actions and character. This Stoic practice helps us navigate life's ups and downs with clarity and emotional strength. Ask yourself, what virtues guide your actions, and how can focusing on them help you better control your emotions? By making virtue your priority, you find stability and purpose in a world full of unpredictable emotions and circumstances. Number 10. Don't be a slave to praise or criticism. One of the core lessons of Stoic philosophy is to not be a slave to praise or criticism. The Stoics taught that external validation, whether it's admiration or disapproval, is beyond our control and should not dictate how we feel or act. If you constantly seek approval from others or get disheartened by their negative opinions, you hand over control of your emotions to forces outside of yourself. Have you ever found yourself feeling either overly inflated or deeply deflated based on what others say about you? Stoicism encourages us to remain grounded, finding our worth internally rather than from the opinions of others. From a psychological perspective, this lesson fosters emotional resilience. When you stop chasing praise and stop fearing criticism, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster that comes with trying to meet others' expectations. For instance, in a work setting, if your performance is entirely tied to your boss's praise, your confidence may fluctuate wildly. However, if you focus on doing your best regardless of external feedback, you stay centered and more in control. This doesn't mean ignoring constructive criticism, but rather not allowing your self-worth to depend on it. Stoics like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius reminded us that praise or blame is a reflection of the person giving it, not necessarily of who you are. Imagine you've completed a project. Some people will admire your work, while others may criticize it based on their own perspectives. A Stoic approach is to accept both reactions calmly, recognizing that neither truly defines you. Instead of seeking validation from others, ask yourself, is this action in line with my values and principles? By focusing on what you can control your own intentions and efforts, you stay steady in the face of external judgments. In the end, not being a slave to praise or criticism leads to greater inner peace. It allows you to stay true to yourself, avoiding the emotional highs and lows that come with seeking external approval. When you embrace this Stoic lesson, you learn to find value in your own actions, independent of others' judgments. Wouldn't it be liberating to live without constantly seeking others' approval? By doing so, you gain the emotional freedom to live authentically, guided by your own principles rather than the opinions of the world. I hope these Stoic teachings are useful and effective for you. My goal is to make your life better and more enjoyable. I will accompany you in this interesting and meaningful magazine.